Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. I'm going to be honest with you. Today is probably going to be kind of a shorter episode, and I'll tell you why. There's two particular reasons that I might make this one a little bit quicker. Number one, I was eating a slice of pizza the other night, and I burned the top of my mouth worse than I've ever burned it before. That pizza was hot. About 500 degrees, actually. So I'm struggling a little bit here. You may have noticed yesterday I tripped over a couple of words here and there, and that's my fault. I apologize. I'll be more careful with hot food in the future, but it is a little bit uncomfortable doing talking for an extended period of time. The other thing is today, NASA is doing a news conference, and I don't remember NASA doing a news conference like they're doing today. This one is all about 3I Atlas. That is that comet that's out in space heading towards Earth about a month away, a little bit less now. And they're saying it's a comet, but they can't say for sure. And it certainly does not have the same characteristics that a comet would have. So the question is, what is it? It appears to be rotating. That's weird. A comet doesn't normally do that. It appears to have light emitting from within it. Well, that's weird. A comet typically wouldn't have that either. So if it's not a comet, what is it? The leading theory is that it is a massive spaceship, and that it's not just drifting through space, it's being propelled through space. Well, using what source of fuel? A lot of questions. NASA's got some high-res images of it that they're going to release today, and I have a feeling that's going to dominate your social media timeline. It's going to come up a lot once these photos come out. We might also learn what it is. If it is aliens, and we don't know for sure, but what if it is? Do you think NASA would tell us in advance? And do you think NASA knows why they're coming here? Why would they come here? Well, we've got vast resources here on Earth, ones that Canada's busy trying to sell right now, and I assume aliens might be interested in that. Or maybe they're not interested at all. Maybe we're like a glorified en route. They're just stopping in to fuel up again and continue on in their journey across the galaxy. I have no idea, but I'm fascinated by it, and clearly someone at NASA realizes there's a lot of public interest in this. The public is talking about it. So let's find out today what we know about 3I Atlas, and in tomorrow's episode of Scott Fox After 9, I will have highlights from that news conference, and we're going to talk more about it. Now, happening today, I'm going to cover the Epstein files at pretty good length. I've got a lot of audio that I want to play for you related to the Epstein files. Yesterday, Congress approved it, almost unanimously, by the way, that the Epstein files must be released. But what exactly are we looking for? That's something I'm going to come back to in this episode. Today, the Prime Minister is jetting off on another trip. No confidence votes in the short term, so he is overseas again. Another trip. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Prime Minister. In fact, I've got some audio from him talking yesterday, the day after his budget passed. I'm also going to circle back on something that I talked about yesterday. If you didn't hear the episode, yesterday, I had some great information that I was given from a senior member of the Conservative Party of Canada, letting me know what the strategy is and confirming for me what many people suspected. The Conservatives were going to let that budget pass. Even if they had the votes to bring it down, they weren't going to bring it down. They're going to let it go. And that's because of a strategy that they've developed based on the polling and all the information that's in front of us. See, one thing the Conservatives have now realized is that if we have a vote now, there is going to be a possibility that Mark Carney wins a majority government. The best case scenario based on the polling right now is that the Conservatives form a minority government, and that really wouldn't implement much of the Conservative agenda because the opposition will block it. So the Conservatives are majority or bust. If you like the Conservative platform, you really don't get any of the things they're promising unless it's a majority government. So the Conservatives, basically what I explained yesterday, are going to wait it out. They know the Liberals and Mark Carney are probably not going to get any more popular than they are right now. There's a lot of reason to think they're going to get more unpopular very, very quickly. And most of that is pointed at the economy. The economy is going to get bad. Canadians are not going to have a great Christmas. A lot of them anyway. And that's going to increase anger with the government. So basically, the Conservative strategy is Give them the rope and let them hang themselves. Let them make themselves unpopular with the public and hope that eventually, through mediums like this, social media, and other forms, people are going to learn what the liberals are up to. You're not getting that information, though, from the mainstream media. Let me give you an example. This seems to be a contentious point on social media, one that the liberals are arguing, but is actually true. In this new budget, at least 500,000 refugees that are here in Canada are going to be granted an amnesty. They're going to be allowed to stay. How do you feel about that? So-called refugees that are here now, that probably shouldn't be allowed to stay, are going to be given amnesty. It's in the budget. The liberals say, no, that you're reading it wrong. Okay, well, let's find out if those at least 500,000 refugees are given an amnesty and allowed to stay in Canada, no questions asked. And regardless of the circumstances that brought them here, whether it's a legitimate refugee claim or not, are we going to let them stay and jump the queue? Looks like that's what the federal government is going to do. Now, have you seen that on the news? In all the lead up to the budget, was any of that even discussed? Did you know that was even a possibility? It's not only a possibility, it's going to happen. And that's why podcasts, social media, and stuff like that, the non-traditional sources of media, are still very, very important, because when the mainstream media won't do its job, you've got to turn to places like this. I'm glad you did today. Thank you for tuning into this episode. Let's get into it now. Before I do, though, one more thing. I'm all over the place today. One more thing. Coming up in this episode, I'm also going to discuss a proposal that came from the Ontario government yesterday that convicted drunk drivers who kill a parent or guardian should pay child support for the kids who have now lost their parent. I know on its surface, a lot of people probably hear that and think, yeah, good. That's the way it should be. I've got a slightly different spin on that, a different take, if you will, and I'm going to explain myself coming up on this episode, so lock it in and let's get going. I'm going to start off in America. U.S. Speaker Mike Johnson talking after leaving the chamber yesterday about why he's a little disappointed that the vote went down the way it did yesterday, clearing the way for all of the Epstein files to be released. Listen to Mike explain.
Any reaction to Leader Thune seeing the bill without adding amendments or changing it?
I am deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think I've been at the state dinner. I don't know. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptively. It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
So do you think he may veto it? You say you spoke to the president?
I'm not saying that.
Is he supportive of it in its current form?
We both have concerns about it, so we'll see. I was standing there with the Crown Prince. We couldn't call.
Are you frustrated in the majority leader? Are you upset with the majority leader?
Okay, he is upset that the bill was passed without any amendments. Now, what kind of amendments is he talking about? Well, there's simple things that he thinks should probably be redacted. I think everybody agrees names of victims and anything that could identify one of the victims should be redacted. That should no doubt be redacted to protect the anonymity of the victims and to make sure that they are not re-victimized. I think we should all agree on that. But there are some other people involved here who may have had contact with Jeffrey Epstein, may have been social with Jeffrey Epstein, but never actually went to Epstein Island, never actually did any of the horrible things that we want justice for. Should they be dragged through the mud just by association? Just because of who they hung out with, who they emailed with, who they texted with, that sort of thing. Never actually did anything wrong, but they were associated with this scumbag, Jeffrey Epstein. Should they be dragged into this? Well, the amendment would have left those people out of it and just focused on those who did the heinous things. But there were no amendments. So if Donald Trump signs that today, and there's no reason to think he won't, a lot of information is coming out. So far, one of Donald Trump's main talking points is they've released 50,000 pages of info on Epstein. What more do you want? People want names and people want details. They want to know who used their position of power or their money or their wealth and influence or whatever to be able to do horrible things to people who were too young to consent. who just assume that because they're a wealthy individual or they've got a nice title or a specific amount of initials behind their name that they had the right to be abusive to women. We want to know who those people are, and we'd like to see some accountability. The problem here is I don't know that we're going to get those kind of details from these Epstein files. I'm going to discuss that more as we go through the audio. Here is yesterday. This was in the House of Representatives. Representative James Comer reveals Hakeem Jeffries solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein back in 2013. Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted years earlier. This is another senior Democrat now with financial ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Listen to this.
Another email shows Democrat fundraisers invited Epstein to an event or to meet privately with Hakeem Jeffries as part of their 2013 effort to win a majority. So Hakeem Jeffries' campaign solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we found in the last document batch. The files underscore why former President Trump must appear for his deposition. We've subpoenaed him. To date, the Democrats have done nothing to help us secure his appearance. I support full transparency. The Oversight Committee will continue to work to get the truth to the American people and to get justice for the victims. That's our goal of this investigation. With that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is
Okay, good enough. That is how the U.S. process works. That was his statement, and it stands. Okay, but now what? So now we're finding out, and there's a couple of examples of Democrats that are fairly intimately tied to Jeffrey Epstein after he had pled guilty to soliciting sex from a minor. They were still trying to hook up with this guy. I'm going to play for you a little bit of Megyn Kelly's podcast. Megyn is great, by the way. If you are into U.S. politics, she is a great person whose podcast you should follow because she's got a lot of great info. She's also a former journalist at Fox News. Well, in her latest episode, she calls out fellow journalists Katie Couric and George Stephanopoulos, someone from NBC and someone from ABC. Mainstream media, the ones who are demanding Donald Trump release the files, and if he doesn't, he must be in them. Okay, well, they didn't tell you this when they were doing those reports.
Here's what I want to know. Why was Katie Couric, why was George Stephanopoulos at Epstein's home in 2010, chumming it up, having dinner with him after he pleaded guilty to solicitation of sex with a minor, which, as I've said countless times, is not a thing. There's no such thing as a minor prostitute. That's rape. That's what that is. But they allowed him to plead guilty to that. It was on the record. And by the way, Katie Couric knows full well that you cannot solicit a minor prostitute. That's rape. So does George Stephanopoulos. He's really big on cross-examining Nancy Mace on how Trump raped E. Jean Carroll, which is a lie that cost ABC News $16 million. So George Stephanopoulos knows full well the definition of that word, and yet he went anyway. Those two journalists, NBC and ABC respectively, went and sat with Jeffrey Epstein at his home where these alleged crimes occurred for dinner, knowing all of that. And these holier-than-thou media outlets like CNN, The Daily Beast, and so on, where is their outrage about that? Truly, why aren't they asking questions about people like that who openly fraternized with him? You know, I will give a shout out to Tina Brown of the Daily Beast on one thing. She wrote some interesting profile on why all these celebs had zero problem fraternizing with Jeffrey Epstein, even after we knew he was a pervert and a rapist. And it was basically they don't care. The only thing they don't want to be seen around, she wrote, is people who are poor. They were more interested in rubbing elbows with the rich guy, notwithstanding his love of raping young people.
Powerful words there from Megyn Kelly, making an accusation against fellow journalists, ones who happen to be in the mainstream media, ones who are demanding Donald Trump be accountable for his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. They never once disclosed that they went and had dinner with Epstein after he'd already pled guilty. That seems like an interesting detail. Obviously, there's a conflict of interest here, and they didn't disclose it. By the way, speaking of disclosure, this is something I try and do regularly here on the podcast. I want to disclose that I have a bias. If you're brand new to this podcast, I'm a conservative. I identify mainly with the conservative platform. Full stop. You're getting your information from a conservative, and I think it's important to disclose that so you know. I report things, I talk about things, I give my opinion on things from a conservative lens. And you should know that you're not getting completely unbiased news coverage. Now, I do that because it's the responsible thing to do. It shows a little bit of integrity in what you're doing if you disclose your conflicts. People should disclose their conflicts whenever they have a conflict. But you never hear the mainstream media do that, do you? They never do it. They'll pretend to be holier than thou, to use Megan's term there. However, they never disclose their bias. They never disclose any of their conflicts of interest, and that's wrong. So this is me being proactive in telling you that what you're getting today, take it with a grain of salt. You're getting it from the perspective of a conservative. More so than that, though, a member of the middle class. That's truly who I care about, and I'll really support just about any policy that benefits the middle class, the people who keep this country going. Earlier, I played a little bit of Speaker Mike Johnson. He did a longer news availability in the day, and he talked more about the release of the Epstein files. I think this is more important audio that you should hear. Listen to Speaker Johnson.
And transparency, or ensuring justice, or protecting victims of this unspeakable tragedy, the Epstein evils. And how do we know that? Because the Democrats had every one of the Epstein files in their possession for the 4 long years of the Biden administration. The Biden Department of Justice had the files the entire time. And not a single one of the people who are so loud and animated right now, they never said anything about it for all those 4 years. None of them held press conferences. None of them demanded the release of the documents. And under Biden's DOJ, when they prosecuted just Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, not a single one of these Democrats or any of the proponents of the discharge ever made any noise about that at all. So it's fair for the American people to ask the question, why now? Why suddenly are they so interested? They have such an urgent interest in the Jeffrey Epstein matter. The truth is simple and straightforward and obvious for anyone who is willing to look at it objectively. Clearly, this is a political exercise for Democrats and a few others, sadly, and it is as deceitful and dishonest as their pointless stunt to shut down the government. Same ideology behind this. Democrats are trying to use the Epstein matter as a political weapon to distract from their own party's failures. And in a desperate attempt, they're trying to somehow tie President Trump to the scandal. President Trump has nothing to do with it. He has said himself he has nothing to hide. And that's clearly what they've been trying to do. They're trying to attack President Trump. This is what they've done. They weaponized the justice system over the last several years to go after him, and this is their latest attempt. And they don't have a platform or a principle to defend on the Democrat Party side, so they put all their eggs in this basket. And that's why you hear endlessly about Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Everything's about Epstein. Now, this was an unspeakable tragedy, we said that. And we have great compassion for the victims. And I'm heartened that I met with the victims. Our House Oversight Committee members met with the victims, and they deserve justice. It has been too long delayed. Not just justice for what they were made to endure, but also we need answers on why it took so long for the Department of Justice itself to do that job.
Okay, lots to unpack from that clip there, and I'm probably going to go from the end to the beginning and work backwards. Number one, why did it take so long? That's a fantastic question, because this isn't just a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an issue of, it's got to be something more than that. Jeffrey Epstein, the FBI, the CIA, whoever's been watching this guy, has probably got files on Epstein going back pre-Barack Obama. So that would be George W. Bush would have been in power when Jeffrey Epstein was doing horrible things. Barack Obama, the entire time. Then there was Donald Trump. Then there was Joe Biden. Now it's Donald Trump again. How did this go on for so long? Because you know that people knew what was going on with Epstein. There's absolutely no way U.S. intelligence didn't know what Jeffrey Epstein was up to. How did it take so long to get to the point it did, where Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were both in jail? And how did they end up in jail for numerous things, mainly soliciting sex from a minor, but there was also trafficking and prostitution charges and so on and so forth? How are they in jail when we don't know who the victims are? Apparently there are no victims. All the names are redacted, and we never saw a trial. They just pled guilty and quietly went to jail. There's a lot more we need to know here. Now, the speaker said the Democrats are only doing this to try and make Donald Trump look bad. Would they do it if they knew that he's not in there? Would they? Would they go on this much of a witch hunt if they knew that Donald Trump wasn't in those files, so that when the files got opened up, it was a big nothing burger? I don't think they would. We know Donald Trump is mentioned numerous times in the Epstein files, but so far there's no smoking gun. Do we know all there is to know about Trump's involvement? Do we know all there is to know about Joe Biden's involvement, or Barack Obama, or George W. Bush, or even Bill Clinton? Do we know everything there is to know yet? Or will that be in the files? Will these files produce a smoking gun? Will these files say Bill Clinton went to that island X number of times and had sex with girls X, Y, and Z and said this and did that, and here's how he got away with it? Are we going to get that direct information? Or do we have to infer? Will it be clear? And here's the biggest question. Can we believe it? So the Democrats have been pushing ever since Donald Trump said this whole thing is a hoax and we shouldn't pay attention to it. Ever since he said that, the Democrats have been pushing to get these files released. And many of the Republicans have resisted that because Donald Trump told them to. And Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, so they followed their leader. Okay, well, the Democrats, we have a lot of reason to believe there are some senior Democrats mentioned in these files. Are they pushing for it now, knowing that their people are going to go down because they also might be able to take down Donald Trump? And what about the names that are in there? You know, I mentioned earlier, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Donald Trump have all been president since the Epstein stuff got in front of the courts. How do we know the files haven't been doctored? How do we know names haven't been removed or redacted when they shouldn't have been? How do we know we're getting the truth when these files come out? How do we know? I want to be able to see these Epstein files, and I'd like a smoking gun, although I don't think we're going to get one. But I'd like something like that, and I'd like to be able to believe that the names that are in there were actually the people who did these crimes. I don't want to hear, well, there's no evidence to say Bill Clinton did anything, and there's no evidence to say Donald Trump did anything, but we got a whole bunch of business people. Everybody who had something to do with this has to go down. And I also think that whoever was covering this up has to go down. Like I said, this has got to go back to the time at least when George W. Bush was in office. People knew this was happening and they let it continue happening. The people who did this must be brought to justice. In fact, Speaker Johnson there said justice as well. And I'm wondering, what is the plan? Once these files become public, will charges be laid? I'd like to think they will, but if there's enough to charge somebody, why didn't they charge them when they first got the information? Why did it take for it to be released publicly for charges to be laid? I want to be able to trust that when these files come out, and now they're gonna, that the names in there are accurate, that we find out exactly what they did, that victims feel empowered to help put these people behind bars. That might mean testifying. It might mean any number of things. And I don't want to re-victimize them, but I really want to see the people who did this suffer a consequence for what they did. Yesterday, I talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was someone who was the queen of MAGA, a top supporter of Donald Trump, but she wants these Epstein files released. When she said that, Donald Trump called her a traitor. Here's her yesterday speaking to a crowd of people in Washington.
I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free. I won my first election without his endorsement, beating 8 men in a primary. And I've never owed him anything, but I fought for him for the policies and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women and refusing to take my name off the discharge petition. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me. And I want to tell you that this only became possible today because the American people whom we serve as representatives here in Congress demanded that this vote happen, and they put more pressure on every single elected politician in this city than has ever been put on them. And today you are going to see probably a unanimous vote in the House to release the Epstein files, but the real fight will happen after that.
I'm wondering what she means by that, and I'm very intrigued. She stopped short of going full-blown nuclear on Donald Trump. But the fight is coming after the files get released, after the vote is held. What does that mean? Does that mean that she knows Trump is in there, and because Trump tried to take her out, she's going to try and take him out? Are they just going to go after the Democrats who are in there? I don't know. But again, this has to be done credibly. We have to be able to get those files and believe that we're being told the truth. We have to be able to say, okay, that is the government being honest and telling us what happened. And if they can do that, and we can have some sort of level of trust that, okay, we know the truth, then that's good. Then we can decide appropriate punishments. I'm just not 100% sure that we're going to be able to believe what they're telling us. And part of the reason for that is there's too many people that apparently need to be protected here. World leaders, not just Americans. There are Canadians in there. There are British leaders in there. There's royalty in there. It is crazy, the names that are going to come out of this list if we get the whole list. You know who does a really good speech on this? I've seen him do it a few times now, is Tucker Carlson. Maybe you're wondering, why do we need to know now? Epstein is dead. The victims aren't naming names anyway. Why don't we just let bygones be bygones? Well, here's why.
What is it about Jeffrey Epstein that's so infuriating to people, so infuriating that it's actually causing seismic political problems? And I hope that they'll address it and it'll get better. I really do. But what is it? I'll tell you what it is. It's the frustration of normal people watching a certain class of people get away with everything every single time. That's what it is.
He's absolutely right. We don't want to see these global elites, these wealthy billionaires, do those horrible, unspeakable things and get away with it. It just can't go down like that. We need to know who was involved, and justice needs to be done. The president was asked several times about this yesterday when he was in the Oval Office with the Crown Prince from Saudi Arabia. Here's just one of the questions.
Now, I just got a little report, and I put it in my pocket, of all the money that he's given to Democrats. He gave me none, zero, no money to me, but he gave money to Democrats. And people are wise to your hoax. And ABC's your company, your crappy company, is one of the perpetrators. And I'll tell you.
Okay, using it as an opportunity to take a shot at the media, but suggesting Jeffrey Epstein was only interested in Democrats, and that's why he donated so much money to them. Well, at one point, Donald Trump was a Democrat. At one point, Donald Trump identified as a Democrat. So the fact that he didn't give Trump any money, I don't know if we can read anything into that. Either way, Trump is definitely mentioned multiple times in emails from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell and other people. If he had no involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, they were just casual, they met each other at functions here and there very, very few times, and that was it, he wouldn't appear in those files as much as he does. By the way, if these files do produce information or evidence that Donald Trump did something wrong, that Bill Clinton did something wrong, that Barack Obama did something wrong, that Bill Gates did something wrong, that Tom Hanks did something wrong, how are people going to be with some of those people being in handcuffs? Do you want them in handcuffs? I do. I think they need to be punished for what they did. But a former president that was very, very popular at one point, Bill Clinton, are you ready to see him do the perp walk and have the mugshot get released and see him in handcuffs and maybe even go to jail for the rest of his life? What about the sitting president, Donald Trump? What about a beloved president like Barack Obama? Can you imagine him in handcuffs being arrested? I'm not saying Barack Obama is going to be in these files, but I'm not saying he's going to be in these files. Maybe he is. We don't know yet. Tom Hanks is a name that gets mentioned a lot. Beloved actor. He's been in some of the movies that you love. What if we find out he's involved? Are people going to be ready for that? I don't know. I'm really not sure. What I don't want is for them to release the names, for us to all know what they did, and then for nothing to happen. That would be wrong. There needs to be a consequence. Here's another question yesterday for President Trump.
And I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert. But I guess I turned out to be right. But you know who does have? Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, who ran Harvard, was with him every single night, every single weekend. They lived together. They went to his island many times. I never did. Andrew Weissman, I hear. All these guys were friends of his. You don't even talk about those people. You just keep going on the Epstein files. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today.
I mean, Trump seems very confident that it's going to be mainly Democrats that are mentioned in these files. There's him again, doubling down, naming names. Okay, all right. Let's see what names are in there. And if Donald Trump is in there, can we agree? Even if you are the most stalwart supporter of Donald Trump and you believe in Make America Great Again, et cetera, even if all of that is true, can we agree that he still needs to go to jail? Can we agree that if Bill Gates did something, he needs to go to jail? There has to be consequences for what happened here. While I'm playing audio from President Trump, and before I get to Prime Minister Mark Carney, the president did hold a state dinner for the Crown Prince from Saudi Arabia. There was some high-profile guests at this thing. Elon Musk was there, dining with the Crown Prince and Donald Trump at the White House last night. Very low profile, slipped in through the back door. He was photographed in the room, but didn't talk to the media or anything like that. But he was there. Cristiano Ronaldo was there.
This room is loaded up with the biggest leaders in the world, business, sports. You know, my son is a big fan of Ronaldo, wherever Ronaldo is here. Ronaldo. And Barron got to meet him, and I think he respects his father a little bit more now, just the fact that I introduced you. So I just want to thank you both for being here. Thank you very much. Really an honor.
That's cool. That's got to be a nice experience for someone like Barron getting to meet Cristiano Ronaldo, especially if you really like Ronaldo. Okay, friends, that's all I got for the Epstein files today. There's more, but I don't think we need to relitigate this. I know I'm repeating myself. I just really want justice to be done, and I want to be able to believe that whatever comes out is the truth. It hasn't been manipulated by past presidents or past DOJs or past FBI directors. It is the unadulterated, unfiltered files. Tell us names, tell us what they did, tell us how many times they did it, and tell us how long you want to throw them in jail for. And I'd also like to know why it took this long to try and bring people to justice. I'd like to know that answer too. But I'm going to move on. Yesterday, the Prime Minister spoke outside the House of Commons. He popped in quickly before his trip today, and he talked a little bit about the aftermath of his budget being passed. Listen to this.
About your reaction to the budget, and also the fact that you have agreed with Elizabeth May in regards to meeting the Paris climate targets. At the same time, you want to sign an MOU with Alberta in regards to the pipeline. How are you going to square that?
Well, first off, let me just say that very pleased that we passed the budget vote. There are more votes, of course, to come through the budget process, but an important step for our country, protecting our communities, protecting our borders, protecting our way of life. Building our country, building locally, building new trade infrastructure, building as an energy superpower, goes to your question. And Canada is blessed. We're blessed with immense natural resources, everything from hydroelectricity through to conventional oil and gas. We're part of an energy transition. We're going to help to lead it. That means Alberta, that means Quebec, that means Ontario, that means all of Canada, it means all forms of energy. And then last and most importantly, This is about empowering Canadians. It's about helping all Canadians get ahead. As I say, protecting our way of life, protecting our transfers to Canadian, getting affordability back established through a tax cut, as well as our essential social programs, everything from the National Food Program through to health care, child care, pharmacare, dental care. All of that is in the budget. I salute the 170 members of the House who supported it. I'm glad it came through, and we're going to continue to work on implementing it.
First off, the question was about Carney agreeing with Elizabeth May that Canada will hit its Paris Climate Accord targets. He completely fluffed off that question, which makes me even more confident Elizabeth May got nothing for her vote. Elizabeth May is a complete and total sellout on the environment, and that's the only reason she's in the House of Commons, is to try and be a voice for the environmental movement. We don't need Elizabeth May anymore. She can go. Let's get rid of her. Whatever riding she's in out there in BC, you guys have probably seen enough at this point. I don't know if you guys have food banks out there, but if you do, I imagine they're very, very busy. Hopefully you're immune from crime, but I assume you're not. You're probably dealing with car thefts and home invasions just like the rest of us. You can get rid of that member of parliament who was a one-issue pony and completely sold out everything she believes in and made a deal with Mark Carney to support this budget based on a promise to think about it or to try. And when he got asked about it, Carney completely fluffed off the question. Nothing about meeting our Paris Climate Accord targets. He did mention, though, oil. This is very interesting, because Trudeau would never do it except to say leave it in the ground. Carney, I guess he's going to lean into it. I know it'll be this low carbon oil, and that's going to create a whole other set of issues. It'll take a long time to get it done, but hey, listen, Elizabeth May does not have an environmental ally in Mark Carney the way she thinks she does. Put it that way. Elizabeth May, you're a fraud. You should step down. While we're talking about the federal government, something I want to play for you, and this one is real quick. 10 seconds. Committee hearing happening in Ottawa. The immigration minister is being questioned. Listen to this very direct question and her not answer it.
How many more patients can our healthcare system handle this year, according to your department's analysis?
Oh, that's not a fair question for immigration.
Okay, the immigration minister feels it is unfair to ask the immigration minister how much more hospital capacity we have here in Canada with all of the immigrants that she's bringing here. That's not a fair question, she says. Frankly, I don't know who else to ask then. Is it the health minister who controls the immigration, or is it the immigration minister who's got to figure out where to treat people if they need health care? They're completely blowing it off, and that's because they don't have an answer for you. Our hospitals are getting quite full, aren't they? We've got a lot of people coming here, and we've got people in Ottawa that are shirking their responsibility for that. They don't want to talk about that. They tried to tell us, oh, everything is fine. You wanted the immigration numbers dialed back, so we're gonna cut back and turn off the taps. They haven't, just so you know. They're preparing a mass amnesty for illegal immigrants that are refugees, that are here. They haven't turned a new leaf. They're just hoping you're not paying attention. But on that topic, I do want to play something else for you. The CEO of the Institute for Canadian Citizenship says the 5-year departure rate for all immigrants is 5%. 5% departure rate. People come here, they look around, they kick the tires and say, I don't like this place. It's too cold. I don't like this place. It's too expensive. I don't like this place. There's nowhere to live. That sort of thing. But it's much higher for certain industries. This is about a minute long. Listen to the CEO of the Institute for Canadian Citizenship.
Today we published data that made clear a startling fact. Canada's most capable immigrants are in fact most likely to leave. The 5-year departure rate for all permanent immigrants is about 5%, but for PhDs, it's 11%. Even worse, the professionals Canada needs most are those who stay least. Of the 16 most in-demand professions, 10 have retention rates that are below average, effectively reducing the contribution period for these people. The 5-year departure rate for immigrant healthcare workers is 36%. That's the same for scientists. The 5-year departure rate for experienced executives is 193% above average. Software developers, AI and cybersecurity professionals, managers in finance, engineering, architecture, the very people who can help Canada build the economy and infrastructure and housing of the future, all leave at above average rates.
For anyone who wasn't clear on what that means, 5% overall for people who immigrate to Canada. That's the departure rate over 5 years, 5%. But for doctors, it's 11%. Healthcare workers in general, 36%. Scientists, 36%. You heard all the stats. Well, that's pretty alarming, isn't it? So these people come here, but the best and brightest leave again and just leave us with the people that we don't really need here. Our immigration system needs to be talked about more, and without hurling accusations of racism and things like that around, because we've got to figure out how to make immigration work for what we need here in Canada and make immigration work so that when people come here, there's a place for them to live, a job for them to go to, and that's after all Canadians have jobs and homes to go to. That's not something the government wants to talk about. I'm running low on time here. So there's something I want to get on this episode, and it's probably going to come up again on Friday during listener DMs. And by the way, it's only Wednesday, and I've already got some doozies ready for you for this coming Friday. It has to do with a suggestion out of the Ontario government that maybe convicted drunk drivers who kill the parent or guardian of a child should then become responsible for helping raise that child, in the sense that they would pay child support. Now, it wouldn't work like child support in the traditional sense. If a couple breaks up and the kid lives with one parent, the other parent is likely going to have to pay child support. That typically goes until the person is completed their first college or university degree. In this case, it would be until they turn 18 or graduate high school, but depending on the age of the child, that's a long time to pay child support. On its surface, I think people can hear that and say, yeah, you killed their parent. You should step up and participate and help offset some of the costs for the people who are left behind. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But there's a couple of things I want you to think about before we have a conversation on this. Number one, that's assuming that drunk driver has any money. And I don't know that they do. So some people will benefit, a lot of people won't, because you actually have to collect that money. And if they don't have any, well, that's not going to work, is it? I'm also a little bit concerned about criminals directly paying their victims. That doesn't happen very often, does it? In this case, you would be paying child support if you kill that parent's or that kid's parent or guardian. Sure. But what about other crimes? It's not very often. I can't think of many examples of when you commit a crime and you actually have to pay to compensate the victim. And my question is, if we're going to do that, if we're going to go down that slope, why are we stopping at just drunk driving? There's all kinds of scenarios. What if you're drunk and doing something stupid and you get in a bar fight? You knock somebody out cold, they hit their head, go into a coma and die. Would that also count? I mean, you didn't intend to kill anybody. And I'm sure that the drunk driver had zero intention of going out and killing anybody the time that they got behind the wheel when they were drunk. There was no intention there. Why would one result in a lifetime of child support, but the other not? Maybe you were committing a crime. Maybe you were doing a smash and grab robbery at a jewelry store. There's a hell of a lot of those happening right now. And frankly, I don't understand why people still work at jewelry stores. I think you guys should shut it down and get out of there. It seems dangerous. Yikes. Why are there not armed security guards in every jewelry store right now? We've got them in every liquor store. Why don't we have them in jewelry stores? It seems to be a playground going to the mall for teenagers to do these smash and grab robberies. They do a lot of damage. They steal a lot of product. They terrorize a lot of people. This is a big, big problem. Well, what if in the course of committing that crime, you accidentally kill somebody? Could happen. Are we talking about you paying child support for life? What if you're underage when you commit the crime? You know, there's a lot of minors who might be tempted to get behind the wheel, drive drunk, and they kill somebody. Well, the Youth Criminal Justice Act protects them in a lot of senses, but not in all. My point here is there's a lot of factors to consider before we start ordering the criminals to directly financially compensate the victims. And if we are going to do that, I'm okay with it, but let's think it through and make sure that we get this right. And why stop at just drunk driving? There's a lot of different crimes where you could kill someone. It's the same thing. You didn't intend to do it, but you did. Why wouldn't those victims of crime be compensated? Heck, it doesn't even need to be to compensate a child who has lost a parent. People who have been victimized by crime have been victimized in a lot of different ways. Sometimes that trauma is so much they can't even leave the house. They can't go to work. They can't have normal social interactions. Maybe criminals should be compensating directly, financially, their victims. So the province of Ontario has floated this idea. Interesting timing, but I won't read too much into that. I'm curious to see where it goes. They're going to do the responsible thing. They say they've got to consult with all kinds of stakeholders, police, the courts, the federal government, et cetera, et cetera. But it's something that's on the table. This is based on a law that was passed in Texas in 2023. If nothing else, I'm putting that out there because it's a good conversation starter. We don't really talk to each other much anymore, do we? Most of the time when we have a conversation, if it gets political or it's about current events, and most of the current events are political, it gets ugly because we're a very polarized society. You feel how you feel and you're not really open to compromise. The other person feels how they feel. And the same way, they're not really open to compromise. And it turns into confrontation to the point where we just don't even talk anymore. Oh, I better not bring up Pierre Poilievre because I think that person's a liberal. I better not bring up Donald Trump because I think that person's an elbows up person. We shouldn't be afraid of things like that. But if you are avoiding confrontation, good for you. Here's a topic that's a current event, but it's not political. Anybody, regardless of your political stripe, should be able to talk out an issue like this and come to a reasonable conclusion. The last thing I'll say on this to add to your conversation, if you want to have it with somebody, is drunk drivers don't think they're going to get caught. The government's going to put this in as a means of trying to deter people. Don't drink and drive. You could end up paying child support for life. No drunk driver goes out expecting to get caught. They expect they're going to get away with it, or they don't know how drunk they are because they're that drunk. Putting more deterrence in, you could put right in the law. If you drive drunk, you will be shot by a firing squad. It's not going to reduce the number of impaired drivers on the street because drunk people make bad decisions. They don't anticipate they're going to get caught for their crime. So if we're using this purely as a deterrent, again, I think we should think it through. But hey, what a great topic that you can have a conversation with just about anybody on, whether or not someone who kills a parent or guardian should be responsible for child support for the kid that got left behind or kids. What do you think? Go ahead and have that conversation with somebody. If you want to weigh in for listener DMs on Friday, no problem. Slide into my DMs at Scott Fox on air. Friends, if you get a chance, 3 o'clock today, Eastern time, on the NASA YouTube channel, they're doing that briefing on 3I Atlas. That's something I'm going to be talking about much more tomorrow. And who knows? We might even have the Epstein files tomorrow. If we do, I'm going to take a deep dive into whatever I can find tomorrow right here on After 9. If you haven't already, there is an easier way. You don't have to check every day to see if I've posted an episode. Just hit subscribe and it will come automatically. I'll see you back here in less than 24 hours, and I leave you today with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.